You're listening to the Well Woman podcast. I'm your host, Jema, women's menstrual cycle educator, natural fertility coach, and daytime mermaid. This is a place where we discuss all things periods, poo, ovulation, fertility, and sex. Join me weekly as we rediscover our menstrual cycles, unlock its superpowers, and guide you back into your cyclical nature. Meah, welcome back to the Well Woman podcast.
Thank you, Jema. I'm so happy to connect with you again. It's lovely to be here. I appreciate you inviting me on.
You are welcome, and I appreciate you being here. We've known each other for a very, very long time, and you have been a guest on the podcast for like a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
But you're here to talk about things leading to pregnancy with nutrition. And this is totally your jam because I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I won't, do that and share all the things because they're all wonderful. But you really are the perfect person I knew in my community that I could have this conversation with, because literally everything to do with women, hormones, conception, fertility health is really your jam, right?
That is my jam. I've been a naturopath for 17 years, and I started out working in a fertility clinic on the Gold Coast, really busy fertility clinic, and just jumped in the deep end looking after patients in their fertility journey and pregnancy journey, and then sort of expanded my wings into more general women's health in practice. Just absolutely love helping women supporting women through that stage. Such a beautiful thing as they're going through that journey of, preconception, fertility, and then their pregnancy and into motherhood. It's beautiful. So absolutely happy to be here sharing info, and I'm so happy for you in this stage as well of your pregnancy, and how everything's ticking along for you. It's a new beginning.
It is kind of like a ticking bomb. Like the bomb will explode soon. But it's so beautiful that you've been in this game for such a long time, because over the last 17 years, I would just want to touch on the fact that you have probably seen the change in, let's just call it the change in interest, where people aren't just learning about fertility because they're having fertility challenges. They're actually learning about fertility to like improve their cycle health, and then understand that well before they even want to fall pregnant. That could be multiple years before pregnancy. Have you seen big shifts in that in the last 17 years in women's health and fertility and preconception stuff?
I would definitely say when I first started out, it was a lot of education around, prepping your body prior to pregnancy. People weren't sort of aware that, I might need to detox or improve my lifestyle or, work on my nutritional deficiencies or whatever. They just had this expectation that it would just happen. And then when it didn't, it was like, what's wrong with me and what can I do to fix it? And so a lot of education at that point around, supporting the body to rebalance your hormones and work on your stress and your adrenals and adjust your lifestyle and improve your gut health and your liver and your overall health holistically to create that environment that's, perfect for pregnancy. But now, like I would say, especially like women in their, say, 20s and early 30s, are coming into, okay, well, I'm thinking about having a baby in, 6
amount of years
or 12 months or something down the track, but what can I do, now to help, balance out my cycle? I've got PCOS or an irregular ovulatory pattern or endometriosis, or, I've just come off the pill and I'm not ovulating, not having a period. So you know, I want to make sure everything's okay, but not to fall pregnant next month, but to, you know, look after myself and make sure everything's good for down the track. So yeah, definitely a shift. And I think it's just awareness, isn't it? Like, you know, social media and Instagram and access to information on the internet is so much richer now. And there's a lot more support and knowledge out there for women in that stage, you know, preconception wise. And it's not just, oh, I have infertility. It's like, okay, well, I'm in a preconception phase. I'm looking after my health as best as I possibly can. And then we'll start trying when we're ready, you know.
And it's funny that we forget that we've always had the opportunity to prepare for this.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been educated on. And so I think that's been like a really big missing piece. And, you know, we could talk about the fact that, you know, it's more heard of now to come off hormonal contraception and that journey of doing that before, you know, before conceiving and et cetera, et cetera. And I know for me, you know, finding out that I had PCOS back in early 2014 was really like a catalyst for me being like, how come I've been in, you know, nutrition and health for a long time and no one's ever mentioned to me about the menstrual cycle? Like, I need to learn about this. And so I think it's wonderful that people are really starting to clue on to like, hey, this is actually a foundational part of life, and having a fertile cycle is actually having a healthy cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about preconception and the nutritional aspects of preconception, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's 3 months before we want to conceive, I should just take a prenatal, right? So like, what's really important to consider in preconception care nutritionally?
Yeah.
And what would you recommend to clients and couples to proactively do in this preconception phase? And how long does preconception phases need to be? Because I feel like I've been in preconception phase for 10 years, you know, since having PCOS. I'm like, I've been ready. I've been like prepping. I'm just waiting for the right man to show up in my life. As I would keep telling our friend Teresa, I'm like, just waiting for the right man to show up. But yeah, how would you answer the phase time? What's optimal? What's like, you know, non-optimal, if there is a non-optimal? And then what would you consider to be really important as preconception care nutritionally?
Yeah. So the time frame, you know, is important, I would say. Like, if you've got the luxury of planning, then I would ideally say 3 to 6 months is a good sort of time frame to consider for preconception. It really allows both you and your partner to get your ducks in a row, essentially, in terms of your health. So we've got to consider that the sperm turnover time is 3 months for men. So if they're making a change today, it's not necessarily going to be reflected in their sperm health for another 3 months. So giving yourself that minimum sort of time frame is going to be helpful for men. For women, it's a little longer, because we've got follicular development time within the ovaries prior to the egg developing inside that follicle. So that's why I say, you know, for women, if you can give it that 6 months, that would be great. But 3 months is helpful too, because then at least you're taking into consideration the egg development time within the follicle of the 3 months. And then you've got that 3 month time frame for the turnover for sperm as well. And nutritionally, you know, to keep it super simple, what I would say is do like you would do if you were pregnant in the preconception phase. Very simple. So, you know, are you drinking when you're pregnant? No. Are you drinking coffee when you're pregnant? No. Are you smoking when you're pregnant? No. Are you eating healthy? You know, because you're supporting the life and the growth of the baby inside you. You know, so doing those things preconception wise, you know, is definitely just a good simple thing to sort of consider. But a big one is definitely the support of antioxidants in your diet. to improve egg quality, and also nutritionally supporting any like detoxification of heavy metals, getting your nutrient balance right, like with your zinc levels and your iron and magnesium and your B vitamins, and ensuring that methylation's healthy with adequate levels of folate and B12, so that when the embryo is developing in those early stages, you've got all of those nutrients there to help support, that DNA replication in those cells, which happens really, really quickly. Having efficient methylation and the nutrients to support that is important, and antioxidants is a huge one. So, you're wanting to think of CoQ10 and vitamin C and all your antioxidants from fruit and veg, your resveratrols, your blueberries, your green leafies are all going to be really helpful. Having your protein sorted as well. So you've got your macros as well as your micros, looking after your healthy fats that are obviously very important for egg quality and cellular health. And your egg that you release at ovulation is the largest cell in the female body.
So cool.
So cool. And so cellular health is such a big one when it comes to egg quality. So you want to consider, that lipid layer of that cell, and ensuring that you've got adequate omegas and good fats in your diet. And then you're wanting to ensure that that cell is working really efficiently inside there, with healthy methylation and healthy mitochondria, so that cell's got plenty of energy and can withstand the journey of popping out of the ovary through the fallopian tubes and meeting the sperm.
Yeah, it's there's so much in that you just shared. I love how simple you make it, but hey, just do what you would want to do in pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, we really live in a world where everyone has a totally different fucking opinion, excuse my language. And then that makes it really bloody confusing. And then we're over confused, and then we don't know what to do. So we just don't do anything because we're too confused about what to do. And I think it really comes back to keeping it simple. And that's such a simple thing to do. And most people know what changes they would make for a pregnancy. So applying them to preconception is so simple. So I love that. It's really, really good. I also just want to, excuse me, I just want to backtrack to the preconception timeframe thing, because, some people do conceive and they don't plan it.
Yes. And
I think this really comes back to, if you're sexually active and you're aware that there might be a mishap or a potentially unplanned pregnancy, similar to what I personally have experienced myself, is if you generally have a healthy cycle and you focus on having a healthy cycle, and that you get the adequate nutrients to have a healthy fertile cycle, having an unplanned pregnancy doesn't mean that you're falling behind. Oh, I don't have any of these things ready to go. So my embryo, some people don't find out till 4 or 6 weeks of pregnancy. They're like, fuck, what's been happening for the first 4 or 6 weeks? I've been getting only the right things that the baby needs. And, the mitosis process is so rapid during that time frame. I just wanted to share that it's really important just to have a healthy cycle.
Yes.
If you live with a lifestyle like that, it's going to benefit it. And a healthy cycle creates a fertile cycle.
Definitely. And a healthy cycle, your period, I love to, quote Lara Brydon here, where she says, your period is your report card for your health. And so if you're having a healthy cycle and a healthy period, that you've been doing well health-wise. If your period's on time, if it's a good length, if you're not having any symptoms around that, then it means that your body's, the systems of your body are working together to support a nice flow of your hormones and, an ovulatory fertile cycle. So, I think why wouldn't you want to make healthy choices to live your healthiest, happiest life? You know, sometimes we have this external factors like stress and travel or whatever it might be, where we're out of routine and we're not making, you know, great choices in terms of our health and well-being. But just remember, your body is extremely, as much as it is sensitive, it's also extremely resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's designed to adapt and to keep you alive. And so if you give it the opportunity to, you know, if you say I've had a bad couple of weeks, or you're like, oh, I've just been, you know, out drinking and then I fell pregnant like that night and I was, you know, heavily intoxicated. What's this baby going to be, you know, like, or whatever, you know, have I been not looking after myself prior to this pregnancy? Just know that you can make the changes at any stage and it'll be all right. Your body will come back into health and wellness. It wants to get back to that place of homeostasis. And also, it's that environment in pregnancy is very protected. So, you know, if you're lucky enough to fall pregnant easily and make it through that first trimester, remembering, you know, that little environment within your uterus where the baby is growing is, sure, it's part of your body, but it's also its own, it's got its own filtration and it'll take what it wants from you. It's got its own agenda around, you know, you can be violently sick and not eating well, but your baby can be completely healthy, you know, and it's just because it takes priority in a healthy pregnancy. And so at the end of it, you might be left like totally drained from that experience, but you know, your baby has taken priority and it will be okay.
It will be okay. And I've shared this a couple of times in this series so far, and probably more like episodes to come, is my partner Brenton has said, or not been very happy with me when I've described the baby like a leech.
Yeah.
He's sucking the life out of me. And, you know, ultimately, like we can be the drained mothership,
Yes.
but, you know, the controller is totally fine having a party down there. So, yeah, really, really good add-on. So thank you. And to circle back to what we're talking about with the timeframes, love that you mentioned about men in 3 months, because,
yes,
you know, like, excuse my language, piece of piss, 3 months. Oh, that's nothing, you know? But for women and those who are the egg carrier, you could say, that obviously sometimes can change depending on age bracket. And I say that knowing that I'm birthing at 37.
Yeah.
You know, like totally aware of that. You know, medical system would be like, oh, you're a geriatric mother, you've got no hope at this time of your life. But I'm a really big believer, you know, being proactive in your health and doing daily things to support your well-being overall, and then also your cycle health, plays a huge role in that.
Yep.
And all those nutrients that you mentioned are so important. And it does take two to kind of tango. And I think that if you are in preconception care, that it's really important to look at the whole picture of what's included there, because an egg is just an egg without a sperm, but an egg and a sperm together is an embryo.
Yeah.
You know, so like it does take two. And something that you mentioned before I ask you about what, you know, what we can do together as a couple or as a partnership is, I know in fertility, and I teach this in cyclical school, is that sperm also have this, you know, little layer on the outside. It's required to be healthy to penetrate the outside of the egg or the ovum for implantation. And most people have no idea. I'm like, if your fucking sperm are dehydrated or they're intoxicated and swimming in circles or zigzags or going backwards, like there's no way that malnourished and mal-informed sperm is going to find through the massive journey it needs to take that egg.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that whilst we do a certain amount of work in conception as the ovulator, there's actually a lot that goes on, you know, for males too. And I think a lot of, and I'm going to categorize heterosexuals here, a lot of women are like, well, you know, I plan the birth and I birth the baby and I grow the baby and then I feed the baby. Like, it's my thing. I need to take responsibility of the preconception, but it really is a two to tango thing, right? So what's your outlook on that?
100%. And you're absolutely right. Like, women do take a lot more responsibility around their fertility journey. You know, I've seen it with couples time and time again. You know, I'll have a couple having trouble falling pregnant, but I'm only seeing the female, you know, and it's like, okay, well, you've been trying for 3 months, nothing's happened. You know, you need to get a semen analysis done, and then it takes like another 3 months for them to get around to doing it, you know, and they're, you know, time's ticking by and they're getting more and more stressed about why it isn't this month. And, you know, it's what's wrong with my body. Is it because I, you know, am not sleeping well or doing this or using tampons or, you know, whatever it might be. It's like, all the things, you know, you just like you guilt yourself into feeling like something's wrong with you when it could very easily be you know, your partner contributing to your fertility issues. So I always encourage couples to do a semen analysis early, because men's fertility rates, I don't know if you've seen it on the news.
I've recently updated all the research for the Cyclical School Natural Contraception and Fertility course, and yeah, they're not extremely high.
It's not good. It's not good. The decline in men's fertility over the last I think 30 years has been really significant. So
huge. We're not just talking like 50%. We're talking like more. Like, just to put it into perspective, it's a lot of decline.
Yeah, I think it's coming up to in terms of men contributing to fertility issues in couples that are trying to conceive. It used to be about 50-50, but I think now it's like about 65% of fertility issues are male related.
The most recent research that I've done, and this would have been like in August, September, when I was putting all of this content together, is that it's like 1/3, so like 33 or 34% is the woman's contribution. And then 34% is the male's contribution. And the rest is a combination of both. So if you look at that, it really kind of breaks down to be 50-50, but depending on each person's individual relationship and also health status, there's always going to be one person in a couple that's a little bit healthier or a little bit less healthy than the other.
Yeah.
And so we need to take that into consideration too. And this is a whole world we could explore right here. So back to you.
And I think too, unfortunately, men aren't always as proactive about, you know, starting a family as women are. And so it's kind of like, oh yeah, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I don't really care. I'll just keep living my life, you know. But for women, their, you know, attitude towards it is so much more complex, you know, a multitude of factors.
Definitely.
And, you know, I'm probably being a little bit generalizing here. But, you know, I think men just don't, you know, they're not as willing to change. And so if you're, you know, drinking like a carton of beer a week, or if you're working in an environment that, you know, you're using a lot of chemicals as a tradie, or if you're bike riding, if you're, you know, really whatever it might be, you know, they're not as willing to change those lifestyle habits.
Yeah.
To improve the quality of their sperm, to improve the quality of their offspring. You know, it's like the next generation. You've got to sort of zoom out a little bit and think about, okay, well, you know, I want to have, you know, survival of the species and the healthiest ones come through. So whatever I can do to improve their brain health, their physical health, and their home environment, and be a good role model, then making those changes now for me is going to mean that it's going to be a healthier, happier pregnancy, better outcomes for Bob and mum as well, and a healthier environment in the home for them to grow it up in. So I think it's just a little bit of that gentle education around the men's role in starting a family. It's not all about just providing financial support. It's also looking after all of the other factors that go into making a healthy, happy child.
You're spot on. And we actually have a couple of episodes after this episode that kind of talk about that. And we have a man coming to talk about transitioning to fatherhood and how that kind of plays out and being the provider.
Yes.
So yeah, really good, super informative. And I think, it's really reflective when we think about, we no longer live in like the patriarchal only world. Like, yes, it is largely patriarchal still, but we no longer live in the world where women just do the things that they're designed to do and that's it. Like men are coming to the table and doing things in a way that they've never done before. And whilst my dad might not have gone and had a semen analysis before I was conceived, we have this more abundant research that we can look at, and the labs that we can have done. And I think if any couple is experiencing challenges, is that it should be taken on together, not individually. And I know in my situation, and I was quite surprised by this, I didn't know this, but I obviously talk about it a lot. He hears me talk about it a lot. Is Brenton came home one day, he's like, I had my semen tested today. And I was like, you what? He's like, yeah. Well, we're planning this year's going to be the year we conceive. And, I've heard you mention it. So I thought I'd just go to the doctor and get my semen test. I was like, oh, okay. Like, cool. And, very surprised. I was very surprised.
So proactive.
Not normally always that proactive, but yeah, very proactive. And it was interesting because then that led us to have the conversation of like, great. So are we ready to enter our preconception window? Now, I already knew I'd been doing a lot of things, specific for that for a long time, but he hadn't really been doing many things specific. And so I, approached this topic by asking like, so what are we doing, to do this preconception window? And from that, there was a conversation of, okay, what are you committed to doing for 3 months to him, and he's like, oh, what, 3 months? Like, why do I have to do it? Like, so, well, it takes a long time to make really good sperm. Like, I don't want just the bottom of the barrel. I want the top of the cream of the crop. Right.
Yeah.
And, there was a bit of backlash. Love you, babe, if you're listening to this, but there's a little bit of backlash about like wanting to change, some takeout habits that he just loves, and that's who he is and he loves that. And I'm very happy that he has that for himself. But I was like, how can we change that for this time frame? And I ended up saying to him that like, look, you only have to do 3 months. I have to do 9 months and then birth and then postpartum. So technically that's like a year and a half. Plus, if you add the 3 months of also preconception care for me, we're looking at kind of close to 2 years. Would you mind managing 3 months? It was kind of like putting it a bit more into perspective, and we always joke about it. But if you are having hesitancy from your partner, like have an open, vulnerable discussion about that and say, hey, like, I don't feel like you're coming to the party, or, this is a we thing, not just a me thing. What can we do about that? Do you have any guidance or tips on that you've seen in clinic around couples, working together or not working together?
Yeah. And, I think there's definitely people I've seen that are all in, they're like super supportive, whatever I can do, I'm in. Like, we want this together, both, 100%. And then there's other couples that are like, one's in and one's out. And I think my advice there is, if you're feeling in that situation where it's a me thing and not a we thing, is to root out really what like you said, have an open, vulnerable conversation, but what are the fears? Like, what are your fears? And acknowledge them and work through them. Is it that I'm too old, that I don't want to be laughed at picking up the kids from school, or that I'm not going to have the energy to run around after a toddler, or that if you've had children in a previous relationship and then that relationship hasn't worked out and you're onto a new relationship, like, do you feel like, okay, well, I don't want to have children again because I've done that in my first relationship? And okay, well, working through all of those things to really, be on the same page and be walking that journey side by side together is really, really important. And just coming back to, I think, looking after yourself, number one, and your own health and well-being, loving yourself, working through your own issues as priority, top of the pyramid, and then working through the health and well-being of your relationship as a couple, and then that foundation, establishing that based off love and similar interests and growing together, and those foundational things of trust and respect, and being at that point to then say, okay, yes, well, we really are ready to have a family and children come into that fold, because I know that I'm okay, you're okay, and we're okay. Just getting those things kind of nutted out first, to then say that, okay, well, we really do, we're committing to a long-term future together of having a child, which is not just getting pregnant. It's not just,
it's not a goldfish.
It's it's and it, you go through those different phases of, I've got two teenage daughters now, 17 and nearly 15, and the pros and cons of all the different baby stages, and primary school and then high school, and then we're moving to a new phase. Like, it's not like it just ends at a certain point. I'm no longer a parent anymore. It's a long-term lifetime commitment. And so who you're doing that with, and making sure that you're on the walking step by step, side by side together is really important.
Thank you for sharing and speaking to that. And it's like, you are a parent forever. And I'm going to say something really, it's the hard truth here. And I really see this a lot. And I mention this to people when I'm supporting them in learning natural contraception and fertility for themselves, coming off synthetic hormonal contraception, is that if you're with a partner, and like this is a hard truth for a lot of people. So if you're listening to this and this feels hard, just see how your body's responding to this. Don't overthink it. Is that if you're with a partner who is not supportive of you coming off, say, the IUD or the pill, stopping the pill, for example, because of their priorities, if they can't support you in that as a couple, because it is a couple thing, like you can just go have sex on your own. You don't need a pill for that. Like this is the thing together, right? If they're unsupportive in that process, how supportive are they going to be in preconception? Then how present and supportive are they going to be in pregnancy and your choices in pregnancy, because it's happening to your body? And then how supportive are they going to be about your preferences for birth and where you desire to birth? And then your preferences for postpartum support and how you desire to be supported in that phase. Is a lot of this is in the earlier phases. And I would just encourage you to challenge and explore that. It's like, I just full stop there to end that. But I think it's something that a lot of people miss. And I'm like, okay, if you feel like this now in this relationship, is this the relationship that you can see doing all these other huge, big steps with? Are they going to be on your team? Like, are you a team together, or you're playing in different teams? Like, is this a Super Bowl, you're playing against each other, or you're on the same team, But let's bring it back to nutrition.
Yeah.
Planning things that we can do for a healthy conception and those very important first few weeks of implantation, embryo growing, mitosis, amplifying. What are some of like the top tips that you think are great for us all to do? And then let's move into like egg quality, because I think that's a really big topic to discuss too. So let's start with, what are the general things that you would recommend? And then we can migrate to there.
So I would just generally say clean up across the board, clean up your diet, clean up your environment, clean up your lifestyle. So nutritionally, you really want to ensure that you're eating organic as much as possible, clean eating, as close to nature as possible, so that you're having good choices for breakfast, snacks, lunch, mid-afternoon, dinner, that you're covering yourself for protein, healthy carbohydrates and good fats. And there's so many different diets out there, from paleo to vegan to
gluten-free,
gluten-free,
breatharian, all of them.
There's a lot, right? So I think what I would consider an ideal diet might not fit for somebody that has got limitations in their diet. And that's okay, so long as you feel like you're meeting your important things around, okay, am I getting enough protein in there? Am I, eating a good variety of carbohydrates, which includes, fruits and vegetables and unprocessed foods, and ensuring that we're getting good fats in there, including, nuts and seeds, or choosing full fat options, or whatever it might be in your, diet, that you can achieve those goals nutritionally. And still sort of working within, if you've got allergies or sensitivities or whatever it might be. Definitely, if you're struggling, go back to that simple thing of, what would I do if I was pregnant, and how would I be eating if I was pregnant? And just ensuring that you're making healthy choices for both. You can just do that together as a couple.
Totally. Household
wide, right? So, make smoothies together, do salads, have your fish or your meat or your
make
eggs.
dinner instead of takeout.
Yeah. Do that at home, and meal prep, and be prepared for those times where you're, I am working late, or I am having a busy day. I need to pull out some soup out of the fridge, or, have some pre-prepared meals, or, there's so many options these days for eating healthy, conveniently, and that might be like a food service, like HelloFresh or Solara or Meal, Muscle Chef, or whatever it might be, so just find something that works for you. When I say clean up your diet, it's also like around chemicals as well, so that you're avoiding, plastics and heating up leftovers in plastics, or eating takeaway, Chinese or Thai food in plastic, or, noodles that are in plastic containers that have got chemicals that leach into your food. So you've got to consider sort of all of those things. People just kind of aren't aware that plastic is so infiltrating into our foods, and we're consuming that, and that plays a massive part on female as well as male hormonal and fertility and your health. So really cleaning up, getting rid of plastics, using glass, and try to just keep food in it as close to its natural state as possible. If you're looking at something and you cannot imagine where it came from or what it used to be, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
Or if you can't read the ingredients on the food list, like, maybe your body's not supposed to digest that if you can't read what that word is. And just a little rant on that. I am so, excuse my language, I am so fucking surprised how many people don't realize that there is maltodextrin in milks that you go and get your healthy turmeric latte in, or your coffee in, just because you're having almond milk. It continues to surprise me, because I only drink milk if it doesn't have any of that stuff in.
Yep.
You know, it has to just literally be the milk. Like, it's a plant-based milk because I prefer to avoid dairy. And there's, like, on the Gold Coast where we live, I think there's 2 places that I know of that do it. Everywhere else is just no. And so you just don't know, even if that small, simple thing, it has this. And if you saw, I think you might have seen this in the factory, right? But if you saw what maltodextrin looks like,
oh yeah, it's
before
bad.
it goes into anything, you do not want that shit in your body. Anyway,
you can't imagine what it would be in nature.
right? I was like, how did it go from, like, this plant? It's like stevia. Like, how did it go from this green plant to white? You know, okay, let's just use, or like, you know, raw honey from locally sourced places. So much in that. And I love what you mentioned about, like, you know, removing the processed foods and just focusing on clean fruit and veg. And this is all stuff that actually supports postpartum. So if you're able to do this in this preconception phase, come postpartum, it's going to be a really great, like, easier integration, because you've already explored a lot of these things together whilst you both have the attention to do that. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I didn't do any of that for my first pregnancy, like, there's always time to do it again if you choose to be pregnant again in the future. Like, there's plenty of time. So love this. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's talk about egg quality. Now, I know that you mentioned about sperm health and age of sperm. And there is that age bracket thing with, you know, more so for females than what there are for men, about, oh my God, like, my time bomb is ticking and haven't met the right partner yet, which I think is a really big thing. And the fertility rate is declining globally. And, you know, couples are birthing much later in, you know, the mother's age brackets than what they ever have before. And so a big question around that is egg quality. Because the older we get, I hate saying this, but the older the eggs are. And, you know, sperm can be sperm at 30, at 25, and at 65. Obviously, that changes too, but just not as dramatically. So there's a really big call around, how do I improve the egg quality, you know, so that I'm not just having a healthy ovulation, but I also have healthy eggs. And I think this is a really big question for those who are in that 35 plus bracket, entering 40. I've got a lot of people I know who are 40, 41, 42, who are like, I've only just met the partner, you know, that I would love to do this journey with. And I'm concerned about my egg quality. Like, I'd be working on this much earlier.
Yes.
But what can we do nutritionally to support egg quality, regardless if we're 25, 35, or 40?
Well, I think a big thing is synthetic chemicals and synthetic hormones as well. So, you know, in that scenario of I'm 42, I finally met the partner that I want to do this with, like, you know, the question is, what have you been doing for contraception for the last 10 years? Like, have you been on the pill, or have you had the IUD, or have you had the Implanon, or, you know, what has your body been soaking up like a sponge for the last, you know,
10, 20 years.
20 years, right? 10,
Some
20.
people it is 20, you know, they go on and they're 16 and go on.
And so that'd be like my first priority, is just having an understanding of that. Like, and if you're 20, say, or, you know, 25, and you've been on the pill for 10 years since you were 15, right? Then it's like, okay, well, I've come off the pill. I want to have a baby, and that's great. But your body needs some time to recover from those synthetic hormones that you've been, you know, soaking up like a sponge. So that plays a big part in your egg quality, because your hormones are going to influence your egg quality. And then all of the nutrients in your blood are going to form that follicular fluid, which acts like fertilizer for the egg. And so you want to ensure that, you know, your nutritional status is good, and antioxidants are the probably the top of the list of things that you can do to improve your egg quality. It's like the best fertilizer for your eggs. So
Love that analogy.
pump those antioxidants in. And, you know, you can do that through your diet. You can do that through, drinks, food and drinks. You can do that
Great supplements like Fem21.
do that through supplements. But also you've got to ask yourself, what is causing oxidative stress on your body to rob you of those antioxidants? And aging, unfortunately, is one of those things that just causes oxidative stress. The longer you're alive, the more oxidative stress that your body deals with as we decline into
as we age.
The closer we are to those telomeres shrinking to, nothing, and we're done. But I think it's important to remember for women to take the clock, the biological clock, off the wall. Don't look at it, because you can be a really healthy 40-year-old and have great quality eggs and, be, super fertile at 40 or 45 or 47. I think the eldest lady is that I helped conceive.
And didn't Hilary Swank just give birth to twins at 48?
Great.
I think I just saw that like a few weeks ago. Yeah.
And so I think, it's not like every day I'm getting older and my window is closing, because if you're thinking like that and you've got that pressure, that's just going to cause a lot more stress, and you won't be thinking clearly around your choices and what is in front of you on a day-to-day basis or a cycle-to-cycle basis. And so you've also got within your ovary stem cells as well. So they're like blank cells that can become follicles and eggs at all different stages of your life. And that's when you hear of these like amazing miracle pregnancies that occur like after chemo, or, like when they haven't had a period for years and they thought they were menopausal, and, those sorts
the rogue ovulation.
And so I think you've just got to, appreciate that, yes, we're born with our eggs and they start developing as we start cycling through puberty. But, if you're interrupting that with synthetic hormones and contraception, then that's going to put you on the back foot for your fertility, later in life. So, as much time as you can give yourself to look after your hormonal health will definitely put you in a better place fertility-wise and with egg quality. And so, it's oxidative stress, which can be chemicals in your environment. It can be things that you're putting on your skin. It can be getting your nails done like every 2 weeks and coloring your hair, or what makeup you're using or lipstick that you're consuming on a daily basis for years and years and years and ingesting that. And, it's like those sorts of changes can definitely make a big difference to not just your fertility and your egg quality, but your overall health as well. Sorting your gut health out and making sure you're eliminating toxins efficiently, drinking good quality water and keeping your body flushed, and, minimizing like alcohol and caffeine and, smoking or vaping or whatever, lifestyle things that are causing more oxidative stress for you. It compounds as you age, because you've just got a longer period of time of doing that, and that sponge is soaking that up for a longer period of time. So squeeze it out, clean it up, and focus on those antioxidants and the things that improve cellular health, right? Like your omegas, methylation support with your B vitamins, good prenatal, CoQ10, vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, are all really, selenium, all really helpful, ensuring your thyroid's working well, you've got adequate thyroid hormones supporting that egg growth and development. Because it's not, you know, it's not like an overnight thing. It's a period that you're working on for, you know, that 3 to 6 months.
And sometimes longer, depending on your starting place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I love how you started it with understanding that, well, let's just look at what you've been on hormonally with a synthetic hormone for a long time. And it really just rung to me when you're like, okay, so what did you start using when you were 16 and now you're 36? And that's 20 years. Like for me, I went on the hormonal contraceptive pill. I was on it for 12 years and I came off the pill, I think I was 27. And it was after that I discovered that I had PCOS. But I literally dedicated the next 4 or 5 years, even without a partner, to cleaning up my shit show. Like it sounds crazy, but like I also had leaky gut. So I was really determined to clean up the shit show. And I just kept doing that because those things that I did just became part of my lifestyle. And so I just wanted to share that, as that there's no such thing as too early. You know, like having healthy, fertile eggs means that you have a healthy, fertile cycle. And that's the whole purpose of born women on the planet, is to procreate in that way. Like that's what we're designed to do. And that's why men can just flip it over in 3 months. And for us, it can take a lot longer. Also love what you mentioned about being 42 and having a really healthy, you know, egg quality. Of course, egg quantity might be different, but quality. And I just love the saying, Meah, of like, don't let age be your cage. You know, you mentioned like take age off the wall. Like it doesn't need to cage you into fear of like, oh, everyone says I'm too old to have kids. And like, if you are proactive and you live this lifestyle that is in accordance to a healthy, fertile, proactive lifestyle, you know, you have just a good chance as someone who's been binge drinking, smoking pot, doing all the drugs at 22.
That's
You
right.
know, like it's all relative. And I think not enough people, might go out of line here, not enough people explore all of this and understand all of this before approaching IVF.
Yep.
You know, and then this is where I'm like, I feel like I might be out of line, but like they don't even teach you in IVF through the IVF process about like the importance of a healthy luteal phase. And do you have a healthy luteal phase? Because if you don't have a healthy luteal phase, implantation's not going to occur like accurately and in a healthy, long-lasting way for you. Therefore, you'll have a misimplantation. And then there goes $10,000. When what if you just invested a year of learning about your body and your cycle and nourishing yourself, and dedicate that to connecting and regrowing new things in your relationship before investing that financial additional assistance, because your body is fucking wise and knows what it wants when it wants it if you give it the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, you know, that quick, easy solution, you know, unless you're ready, you're not willing to sort of do the work and do the digging and make the changes. You're like, okay, well, I'll just, you know, it hasn't happened, so I'll just do IVF. You know?
And then a lot of fears put into that too, like, oh, you've got no other options, or this is the, and I'm like, I challenge all.
Yes.
You know, I challenge, like, does it really feel in your body that you have no other options? And how many stories have we heard about, you know, and this is nothing against people who have chosen IVF and it's been very probable for them, but I know many people where it hasn't been probable. And the amount of people who have experienced IVF for their first or second child or both, and then all of a sudden they accidentally conceive at an older age with even more stress in their life because they've already got 2 kids and they don't need the assistance of IVF. And that just is a great demonstration that there was nothing wrong in inverted brackets. It just wasn't aligned in the right way it needed to be aligned. Like you said, like get your ducks in order.
Yeah.
The ducks just weren't in the right line. They were in different lines.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've supported, you know, many, many couples through their IVF journey. It hasn't all just been natural fertility. And I'm really amazed at the technology and of medical science supporting, women to have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies. And it's definitely got a really, important place in.
It does. I agree.
I just, wouldn't rush into it, and ensure that you do all of the work individually and as a couple prior to embarking on that, because that's a whole nother thing,
And by doing that prior work, you actually are amplifying the use of IVF.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As opposed to going in with no prior work. And so all of this stuff that you've shared with us today in this episode is beneficial for everybody, regardless of the journey that you're going on. And, of course, IVF is essential for those who are, women who decide that they like to mother on their own and they don't have a partner to mother with. But all of these things still apply to you. And you can still do these things and move through these same processes and support your body in the same way. And I love that, we live in a world where we can actually take action individually first, like get a good foundation going. So if you do need any additional support, which is what maybe people think differently, but I believe that's what medicine's for, additional support.
Yeah.
Where necessary and where really needed. But it also requires foundation too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Definitely. And it does, help doing that preconception work, whatever you want to call it, just be like, okay, it's like doing a challenge at the gym or whatever,
Totally.
You're just making a commitment to yourself to clean up, be healthy and happy, sort your hormones out, track your cycle, and ensure that, okay, well, when the time comes, I'm ready, I've got this, and whatever like that next phase throws at you, you can embrace that and adapt and be a lot more resilient because you've been training.
Love it. You've been prepping in the gym.
Yeah.
This has been amazing, Meah. Thank you so much for sharing all of this beautiful wisdom and having some side rants with me about random topics on this topic. And I think these are the types of conversations that might sometimes be conflicting or challenging when you meet with your naturopath or your nutritionist or, whoever your nutritional support person is in this preconception phase. But it's really important to know that, our body is built on micronutrients and cells, and cells grow from micronutrients and babies are grown from cells. And so this really is an important foundation. It's not just like, I'm going to have a spiritual, awakening and it's going to just happen like this. Like that happens too. And it's important, but also the cells grow from micronutrients, so just recognizing that this is a piece of the pie, and it's kind of like, making a cake without a wet mix. Like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So thank you so much. How can all of our listeners learn more about who you are, find you, connect with you? What's the best platform for them to do that?
Well, I probably would go to Instagram at the moment, even though I'm sort of feeling a little bit funny about it at
this very present time.
Yeah, no, Instagram is probably the best way to connect with me. And then my handle's just Fem21. And so you can DM me through there, or head to fem21.com. That's my website. That's the product that I created for women to help improve their hormonal health. So even though I'm not seeing clients in practice at this stage, you can still learn a whole heap about women's health and hormones through Fem21 and through the content and info I put up there on Insta and on my website. And yeah, it's been great sharing on this platform with you, Jema. I so appreciate it. And you're doing wonderful things to help empower and educate women all over Australia and the world. So keep up the good work, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, honey. You're so, so welcome. It's a real honor. And yes, all the links to your amazing product, which I've known from the very, very, very beginning, fantastic. I love recommending it to people to use because I think it is additionally really good hormonal support. And people like to use a product that is ethically made, well sourced, comes from a great place, which it does. So I'll pop all those links in the show notes. And thank you. I've got one final podcast question.
Yes.
What's one thing you kind of wish you had have known before you personally entered your own pregnancy journeys many, many moons ago?
That it's not all about the birth.
Great.
Okay, that's probably what I would say, because when I was, without sort of a whole other thing, when I was pregnant, I was just so focused on having the ultimate birth. And obviously I was doing all the things good for a healthy pregnancy and supporting myself through the different phases. But I was just like, that's the end point. But I really learnt so much from letting go of having a perfect birth and realizing that that was just like a drop in the ocean for the rest of the journey of parenthood. And I really think that the pre-work, like preconception work, the healthy pregnancy, the breastfeeding, all makes a huge difference to set your baby up for the healthiest, happiest, best life possible. And that the birth is not as important as you might think.
Oh, I like that. Great tip. I'm popping that in my back pocket. Thank you. It's been an honor. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you for sharing today. And I can't wait for everyone to reach out and connect with you.
Thanks, Jema.
Thank you so much for tuning into every episode of the Well Woman podcast. For everything we mentioned in today's episode, you can find this in the show notes over at wellsome.com/podcast. If this episode excited you, please hit follow on Spotify, which means all of my episodes will pop up in your feed weekly so you never miss a weekly drop. I'd love you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts too. Loved this episode? Come and follow me over on Instagram at wellsome_Jema. Say hi and share what you've taken away from this episode with me. Now, is there a bestie, sister, or a friend who you know who might be fed up, frustrated, and confused with their cycles? Are they ready to join you in awakening their cyclical essence too? Well, take a screenshot of this podcast episode, share it on your socials, email it, text it, or any way you need to get it to them. So together we can all live in flow, harmony, and balance with our cycles. Now, until next time, beautiful, get connected, listen to your body, and remember, body confidence all begins with living in tune with your menstrual cycle.